Hello, this is Gina Piscatelli, your instructor for Anatomy and Physiology 2. And this is just a short introduction to the course this spring of 2023. Anatomy and Physiology 2 is a lot of fun because you finally get to study the organ systems. And just to pique your interest, I'm going to ask you a couple questions here. Did you know that every day your body makes 100 billion blood cells? That's a lot. 0.75 to 1.5 liters of saliva, 3 liters of gastric juice, and 1.5 liters of urine, but that can vary. So we're going to get to talk about the circulatory system, the digestive system, and the urinary system in this semester. I particularly enjoy the urinary system in combination with the respiratory system because they can help compensate the amount of CO2 and therefore determine blood pH. We'll talk about that later. But one of the things that the kidneys can do that's so remarkable that I have on the bottom of the slide here is that your kidneys can make urine that is either less concentrated than your blood and body fluids or more concentrated. That's not true of all animals, but we can do that. And one thing that people often think about when they think of the respiratory system and the rate that we breathe is they usually think the degree that we breathe is controlled by the amount of oxygen in the blood. But actually it's due to the amount of carbon dioxide. So when carbon dioxide gets high, we breathe more to exhale it. It's kind of interesting, just to pique your interest. So let's get on with how the course is organized. As you know, like A&P1, it's a 4-credit course, but this format is a hybrid format. And I'm going to do lectures, pre-recorded lectures, so those will be done mainly on your own through Blackboard. That's where they're posted. But then we do the labs in person. And we'll study, as I mentioned, the circulatory system, the respiratory system, digestive system, urinary system, but also some others that you might not think of right away. And that would be the lymphatic system, immunity, pH balance of our blood, it's really important, and both male and female reproductive systems, as well as a little bit of genetics, which we'll do primarily in lab. One thing I'd like to mention is that in lab we're going to study the circulatory system, respiratory system, digestive system, urinary system, and reproductive system in the cadaver, but also we're going to actually dissect a cat. And you'll work in groups, pairs, or up to 4 people, depending on how you'd like to organize yourself. So I just want to give you a heads up on that too. So you could follow along with the syllabus if you have printed it out. And if you haven't, that's okay, I'll give you a copy. On the first page, my contact information is listed. The best way to get a hold of me is by email. I'm hardly ever at my desk because I'll be teaching 6 different classes this semester, so I'm usually in the classroom or preparing frantically. Now on the syllabus has my room number, which is close to the elevators, 3448, and a list of office hours, but that's already changed, and I'm sorry, you'll want to make a note of it. Originally I wanted to have office hours both on Mondays and Wednesdays from 3 to 4 before our 4:30 lecture discussion. But now I have another class that I'm offering a lab on Wednesdays. So I won't be available Wednesdays from 3 to 4, just Mondays 3 to 4. Okay. we'll check and see. I've got to get Wednesday people some availability, but a lot of that might be taken care of in our discussion section. And perhaps I can get there as early as 1:30, so we'll try that. So I've mentioned a lot about how when the classes meet, so let's talk about that. The schedule of our class periods in person include a discussion period 1 time a week. So that's from 4:30 to 5:20. Either you'll have it on a Monday or you'll have it on a Wednesday. And the beauty of this design is that whichever day you have the lecture discussion, you'll also have your lab. So Monday people, you'll have Monday lab and Monday lecture discussion. Wednesday people, there's 2 different classes. In one case, a lab is before the lecture, and in another case, a lab is after. Okay, so not much is different as in terms of what course materials you need compared to A&P1. It's the same textbook. So Human Anatomy and Physiology, the 11th edition, which you can rent. But the lab manual is different, of course, because we have different organ systems that we're going to look at. And so the lab manual for A&P2 is a little bit different than what you might have gotten maybe like from somebody else. So you're going to want to purchase a new one. And it's only available at the bookstore, by the way. So this hybrid course format is something that I wanted to do because I thought it would be the most efficient way to cover topics in like a single organ system. I can have you either read or watch lectures, and then we can talk about some physiology and then have lab and look at the anatomy, or we can have anatomy 1 week and then you can watch the lectures and we can talk about the physiology the week after. So I think it's going to become the most efficient way for you to take the course as long as you're self-directed. So I just want to talk about the fact that although it looks like it might be easier because you only have to come in once a day and it only meets for 3 hours a week, we really expect you to spend the same amount of time as you would in an in-person class. So if you were taking the 4-credit class in person, which I have up here, you'd meet for 3 hours for lecture, 2 hours for lab, and that's 5 hours. And then we expect at least an hour, sometimes 2 hours of study time outside of class. So a little bit less for lab and versus lecture depending on the weeks that you have an exam. In our hybrid format, we're still thinking 13 hours a week, but it'll be split up a little bit different. You'll be able to work on at a certain time, anytime you want, for these 3 hours of lecture because they're recorded. And you can stop and pause them and start them up again, you know, take breaks, whatever. But I would like the opportunity to just clarify some lecture points with you because some of the stuff is a little bit tricky, just because there's a lot of physiology. It's not hard once we go through it, I don't think. But so that's the 1 hour per week in person. You'll still have 2 hours of lab like always. And then I reduced your study time because really by watching those recorded lectures, you're really getting study time. Because I know you'll stop notes and that kind of stuff. So to help you succeed in the class, I suggest that you stay abreast of the material. Try to follow the schedule, which we're going to talk about in a minute, so that you're not caught at the last minute before an exam. So the following resources are available if you need them. I want to let you know that. One is that I still will give out study questions, but you're not turning these in. I really just want you to use them as a study guide. So after you watch a lecture, you can look at the study guide and see if you can answer it. And then there's the biology learning lab, which is across the hall from the anatomy and physiology lab. And you'll really use that quite a bit, I believe, in AP2. Of course, I'll post things on Blackboard all the time. The lectures are already posted, assignments will be posted, maybe an interesting website on a certain topic will be posted. If you need any computer help accessing Blackboard or you're having some kind of funny glitch, here's a good phone number for you at the college. And also, if you're interested in having a peer tutoring session or getting some sort of coaching for the course, I suggest you contact the Student Achievement Center and find out when they have somebody who specializes in anatomy and physiology too. And here's their phone number. It changes every semester, so I'm not sure who they have and when they have them. And then if anything else comes up, something in life pops up that's difficult to deal with, here's the phone number for the counseling services, either academic, career, organizing work schedules, any kind of personal counseling that you need. They can always recommend certain individuals that specialize in areas. And then also individuals have learning disabilities or physical disabilities, but usually I just deal with learning disabilities, and therefore they have plans in place to help them succeed in the course. And that phone number is listed here, the Disability Resource Service. Usually I only deal with testing issues, accommodations that have to be made for testing issues. So I just want to make sure that if you do have some sort of testing accommodation, or you've been approved for a testing accommodation, something like Test Alone, Test in the Testing Center, reading, instead of reading the test questions, they're auditory for you. Anything like that, I need to see a copy of your accommodation plan so that I can set up the adaptations that you need as soon as possible. Okay, so just a heads up on that, and you can email it to me, that's fine. Okay, so that's one of the course policies. Let's go through a few course policies here. This is on page page 4 in your syllabus. So during scheduled exams, and this would apply mainly to our lab exams because your lecture exams are going to be online, we need you to mute your cell phones, any kind of laptops and tablets, and you won't be able to wear a smartwatch, okay? And you certainly can't listen to an iPod while you take an exam. Okay. For attendance and class participation, my policy is to state that attendance is required, and I will record attendance for those lecture discussions and for the labs, and your grade will greatly benefit if you attend. But really, for other reasons, I need to keep track of who's coming and who's not, just with the college. Right now, I don't give any points for coming, for being there, for attending. Points for attendance are not awarded separately. That way, if you miss, you're not docked any points. You don't have to worry, okay? Now, if we have really poor attendance for some reason, I'm going to just state here that I have the right to change this policy if need be. Now, of course, this would be most relevant to labs, but I can guarantee you if you don't come to class, you won't do very well on the exams. So I expect most of you know that already. Okay, now that brings up absences. If you need to be absent for some reason, a certain week, first let me just state that you could come to a different lab. I would ask that you let me know. Okay, so if you need to miss a lab, you can attend a different lab, but please let me know so that there's not too many people doing it a particular week. Okay, but otherwise, if you have to miss, you don't have to let me know. Okay, you're adults and you know when you have to prioritize something differently. So since we only meet once a week, I presume most of you will be eager to attend because you're not going to get to come another day and sort of catch up. Okay. As far as missing scheduled exams, so I've already mentioned, and I'll say it again later as well as now, that your lecture exams are going to be online. Okay. So I don't know that this is, it's sort of related. Okay. It's harder to miss an online exam, but missing any exam, either the due date for an online exam or an in-person exam, means that you have to provide some sort of documentation to make up the exam. So I will only give a missing exam. I will only give a makeup exam in cases of emergency or some extreme circumstances. And I need documentation of what those circumstances are. So anything from a doctor's note for an illness that says specifically either that you were seen or that you can't come to class. I've even asked for obituaries because a funeral is happening that particular day. Car accidents, there's always a police report. Jury duty, there's always something. Towing your car, there's only something. Okay. Having said that, I do try to be somewhat flexible. Okay. Life happens, and I understand that. But it's extremely difficult to set up a makeup lab exam, particularly for A and P2. It's much harder because of the cats that are involved. So I have a policy that you can only make up one exam regardless of how many emergencies there are during this semester. Okay. Now, as far as missing lecture exam, an online lecture exam, you're going to have a range of days that you get to take the exam. So that shouldn't come up. If it does, if there's extreme circumstances, I can also extend the deadline for you. But again, you can only miss one exam due date throughout the semester. Okay, so what are we going to have going on this semester? Like what assessments are you going to have? That's what we call tests and quizzes and assignments. We call them assessments. So throughout the semester, you're going to be assessed with what I call take-home assignments, lecture exams, a couple lab quizzes, and lab practicals. Okay. Now, we're going to have 3 different lecture exams online. That means there's 3 lecture units. Each one of those will be 100 points. To help you prepare for those, I create lecture assignments, and we'll talk about those again. The lecture assignments will also be submitted online, but you're going to have many days to get it done, somewhere between 7 and 10 days to get it done. Okay. We'll have 3 lab practicals in person. Those are worth 100 points, just like the lecture exams are. And then I've pulled out some of the lab material so that you won't have to have it on the lab practical, and instead you'll do a couple of quizzes. Okay. And then at the very end of the semester, you're going to do a genetics assignment and turn it in, which actually we'll probably end up doing in class, and it'll be kind of fun. Genetics is usually pretty straightforward. And by the time we get to the end of the semester, you're like relieved there's something that's straightforward and everything. It'll be good. So your final grade is going to be based entirely on the points that you get out of this total. Okay. Now I do offer what I call bonus questions or redemption questions in each one of these assessments. There'll be some bonus questions in exams and practicals. There'll be some in the lecture assignments. There'll probably be some on the quizzes. I actually didn't write those yet. So since there's so much, I'm going to say extra credit, I don't know if that's really the way we want to call it, throughout the semester, once you get to the end of the semester, there is no extra assignment available or a project for extra credit. So you want to keep that in mind as you proceed throughout the semester. Keep track of your scores so you know how you're doing, okay? And please keep all the graded work that you have until a final grade has been assigned. And I'll try to get the scores in Blackboard posted as soon as possible, which should be easier with this hybrid format that we're using. This is my grading scale. As I mentioned, the points that you earn will be added up and used to calculate a percentage of the total course points that you've earned. Then this is the scale I use to convert your percentage into a letter grade. It's the same one I use for A and P1. For those of you that didn't have me for A and P1, I'm sure it's close to what you experienced with your other instructor. Okay, so here's some information about lecture assignments. I call these take-home assignments because I want you to take them home and work on them outside of class. I will give you a hard copy in class so that you can carry it around with you and work with other students whenever you can. Okay. I do encourage you to work with other students because everybody will look at all the choices a little bit differently, and then you'll have a discussion and you'll rule things out and it'll work really well. Usually it does anyway. The scores are usually very high for lecture assignments. They're typically 25-point assignments, but I've added some bonus questions in a few of those. So there's a copy on Blackboard in case you lose the hard copy that I give you. You're going to have 7 to 10 days. There's a set of due dates I'll show you to work on that assignment. And then instead of turning in the hard copy, you're going to enter your answers in Blackboard by a certain due date. Okay? Now I'm going to give out 8 of these assignments throughout the semester. In fact, they're all in Blackboard already. But only 6 will count towards your grade. And of course, we're going to pick the 6 highest. So your 2 lowest assignment scores will be dropped. Okay? So that just allows you to kind of, have a bad week, you can't get it done, whatever. It sort of allows you not worry so much if you didn't get one in. I don't take assignments through email because I'm not going to sit there and enter them or enter a grade or anything. It's going to be automated, okay? But if you need to submit an assignment into Blackboard late, you can do that. You've got to ask me to extend the deadline or whatever, and then your score will be reduced by 20% per calendar day. So let's say it's due on Sunday, you don't get it until Monday at midnight, then that's 20% off automatically of 25 points. So that's 5 points off. Okay. Now the information about lecture exams, I want to let, particularly the people that haven't had me as an instructor before, let them know that my lecture exams are entirely, truthfully, I say mainly here, but really entirely multiple choice and true false. It's possible that maybe I'll throw in a short essay question for a bonus question or something, but I'll figure that out when we get closer to the test date, and we'll talk about it. So we'll talk about it in class, what the test will be like. Now, there's a date in the syllabus for each of the 3 major lecture exams, as well as assignment due dates, etc. And I'll show that to you in a second. During the lecture exam that you are taking online, you're going to be timed. It'll be you'll have to choose read the question, all the options, and choose the best answer in approximately 1 minute. What that means is that it's not like the question goes away after a minute. It just means on average, I calculate the time that you need to take an entire test, thinking that you'll read each one and choose an answer in 1 minute. I know that sounds tight, but I'm trying to scare you now rather than surprise you later. Okay. But during the exam, you will be allowed to use a 3x5 index card, both sides of it, for any handwritten notes that you'd like to have on hand. Okay. Please don't type the text on those index cards in like 3-point type or something. First of all, you won't be able to read it. Second of all, it's kind of a waste of time. And handwriting things really helps you learn things. So the exams will be submitted online, and there's going to be a due date. You have a range of a range of days you can get it done. To prepare for these lecture exams, I recommend that you look at all the PowerPoints. You don't have to listen to all the recorded lectures again if you don't want to. I understand that's a lot of time. But I would go through all the lecture slides and look at the study questions at the same time, because the answers to the study questions can really be found on the lecture slides. Of course, the answers are also in the textbook reading that I assign, and I'll show that to you as well. But these study questions ask you to think about the material a little bit. Sometimes it's a really straightforward study question, like list 2 ways that blood pressure is regulated. Okay, something really simple like that. Just list, right? Another will be explain, right? So, and I always recommend that you speak out loud while you're studying, either to yourself or to other students. So I'll give you both this syllabus and the study guides for each exam when we meet in person. So since we're talking about lecture, I just wanted to let you know what I would like you to do in preparation for attending class once a week. So as you prepare for our lecture discussion periods, first you definitely want to stay up with the schedule, right? You always want to consult your syllabus to see what the topics are, okay? Look at the assigned reading that's listed, and I recommend that you read the textbook. And as you read, you can use the study questions sort of as an outline to make notes. Now, it might not always follow perfectly in order of the study questions, but it's pretty close. Okay. Then I would watch the recorded lectures, because the recorded lectures will clarify, I hope, anything that was confusing in the text. And the recorded lectures definitely go according to the study questions, like in a certain order. So then finish the study questions. That would be good if you could do that before a lecture discussion period based on the topic that we're going to discuss. And I'll show you examples of how that will work. Now, if you only get some of that done, that's great. That's better than nothing, right? And it might help you to make notes, since we're only going to meet once a week, to make notes or a list of questions to ask me about topics, things you didn't understand completely, or at least highlight them in your notes. Okay, so having talked about that, let's look at the lecture schedule for just a second. So this is the lecture schedule for weeks 1 and 2, and it's on pages 8 and 14 of the syllabus. So we have the week on the left, and then those dates in the middle column here, for the first week. And then we have the general overall organ system that we're doing, and what part of that organ system. So the first week, our focus is on the circulatory system, and we're going to look at blood. We're going to talk about blood the whole time. The second week, we're also going to do the circulatory system, but we'll finish up blood and start the heart. And this goes on for 4 weeks. The circulatory system is a 4-week unit all by itself, and then you take an exam. But we'll get there. So what I have listed are the lectures that you need to watch. It gives you the title of the lecture and how long it is. It also gives you like, for example, the second one says general structure and function of the circulatory system. That pre-recorded lecture is 11 minutes long. It pertains to study question number 1, and here is the chapter and section for the reading that relates to that topic. So you'll notice that with this particular recorded lecture, there are 6 of them to do for the first week. Now, keep in mind, we aren't even meeting really the first week. Let me explain why a little bit. Because of Martin Luther King Day, there is no class on Monday at all. So Monday people lose lecture discussion and lab. Therefore, since we're not having lab on Monday, we're not going to have lab on Wednesday, because then you're not all on the same schedule, and it gets too confusing for everyone. So we can have a Wednesday lecture discussion for those of you that want it. So I plan on being available on Wednesday, and that room number has changed now, but on Wednesday from 4:30 to 5:30, in case anyone wants to show up and ask me any questions about these blood lectures. But when we meet the second week, we are going to talk about those topics. Particularly, I'm just going to focus on the 6th one, the blood groups, right here. Okay, the blood groups. So I think it's going to work the best for you to, in week 1, watch the lectures that we're going to end up discussing during week 2. And the same will be true for the next week. So you're in week 2, you're going to watch these lectures in preparation for meeting on week 3. So it's kind of good that our discussions are at the beginning of the week. When you get done with class on Monday and Wednesday, you can start watching the next lectures. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Also, I'm going to be giving you assignments to help you understand what you need to know, basically, and to have practice test questions on all these topics. So the first assignment is on blood. The second assignment is going to be on the heart, and there's due dates listed there. Okay, so that's kind of how you use the syllabus, and you are going to want to keep track of that schedule. Okay, there's a list of due dates I can show you. The first due date isn't until January 29th. So, but you certainly go ahead and start looking at those lectures and looking at the lecture assignment, because everything is posted on Blackboard. Now I want to go back to lab for a second and talk about how to use the lab schedule a little bit more. Let me, there we go. Okay, so as I mentioned, there is no school, no lab in person our first week, next week, Monday and Wednesday. There isn't. So I'm going to have you do the blood lab at home, which means that you're basically going to read and answer questions in the lab manual. So I'd like you to have a lab manual. That's your main task, is to purchase a lab manual, right? And read pages 5 through 6, and then the blood lab is 7 through 24. But there's a lot of pictures in there, so it's not just complete text. And then you're going to answer these questions. Now you are going to read about a couple of topics, hematocrit and blood typing, but we're going to do those in the week 2 lab so that you'll have an opportunity to do some hands-on with that. Now let's look at week 2 when we do meet in person. Okay, when we do meet in person, what I'd like you to have done is the reading and these questions for the blood lab. You want that all taken care of. And you want to at least read the heart anatomy lab before you get to class. And I recommend that you answer these pre-lab questions 1 and 2. I mean 1 to 12. Sorry, I thought it was 1 and 2. 1 to 12. Now please understand that these pre-lab assignments are not graded. There are recommendations for you to do before you get into the room, because as you know, you have a limited amount of time in lab to work with models and things. So this is a recommendation. Okay, so we'll first do hematocrit and blood typing from the previous week, just to kind of give you some hands-on, and then we'll start with the heart in week 2, and we'll learn picture of the heart, and you'll use models for that. Okay, now we get down to a lab exam here, lab exam 1. That's going to have all the material from week 1 to week 4 in it. Okay, so that's how that works. And I do have a list of important dates to remember in the syllabus. It's at the very end of the syllabus, so you might want to consult that, fill in your calendar or whatever. Okay, this was an awfully long introduction. It might have, I guess, caused you to think of more questions than get answers, but I can't wait to see you and start the semester. Thank you very much.